Activated, your window into an extraordinary world lived by many yet celebrated by few. We showcase how to rally for persons with disabilities, taking you on a journey with valuable life lessons and intriguing personalities, leaving you ready for action. Activated takes us on a journey of taking lessons from persons with disabilities and how we must do things differently to unleash the contribution persons with disabilities can and must make to building a disability-inclusive results. In today's program, we focus on families that require disability-accessible travel options to enjoy holidays together. We meet René Moses and explore her highs and lows of being in the travel industry as a woman with an impairment. We speak to Jerry Magagula, President of the Transport Users Group of South Africa, TUGSA. And we end our show with Jeremy Opperman, who breaks the inaccessible travel chain elephant into digestible pieces. Hello and welcome to Activated with me, Helge Barkhuizen. Om te reis en na nuwe plekke te gaan, kan egter skrikwekkend wees vir persone met gestremthede, veral daardie persone met mobiliteitsgestremdheid wat rolstoele of bromponies gebruik. In die verlede was vervoerdienste, restaurante, hotelle, safaris, strande en ander aktiwiteite en vorme van vermaak nie altyd vir persone in rolstoele toeganklik nie. As gevolg van hierdie ontoeganklikheid en die vrees vir die onbekende, is daar sommige met gestremthede wat bang is om te reis, vakansie te hou of na nuwe plekke te gaan. Toeganklike toerisme sluit toeristeplekke in openbare en private besit in en stel persone met alle gestremthede in staat om onafhanklik en met billikheid en waardigheid te funksioneer deur die lewering van universeel ontwerpte toerismeprodukte, dienste en omgewings. Now let's get activated. René Moses, founder and tour operator based in Cape Town, specializes in wheelchair-accessible tours and transfers. She became a quadriplegic due to a motor vehicle accident in 1995 and uses a motorized wheelchair. A people's person, she thrives on her dedication to customer care. Let's meet René. Her vehicles have been adapted with hydraulic wheelchair lifts to cater for wheelchair travel. For client safety, the wheelchair is secured to the floor by means of 4 floor restraints. A body belt is placed around the wheelchair user and the wheelchair to ensure their safety. She has the necessary permit with passenger and public liability cover.
From my own experience, my husband and I travel quite extensively, internationally and locally, and we got quite a few hurdles when visiting places. You'd phone, but you'd assume that the person would know what you're talking about. Are you wheelchair accessible? Yes, we are. Got to the facilities, many times we preempted this and we'd take bricks with us and pieces of wood and make a makeshift thing. With the bathroom situation, we'd always take a hand basin with us so I could wash. So knowing this helped me then to see how I could better assist my clients. What I personally do is go to each facility to make sure it's wheelchair accessible. As a tour operator, I offer accommodation, the tours, the transfers from the airport. I offer if you need any medical equipment, I can source that. I offer wheelchair hiring as well. So whatever, it's like a one-stop. Whatever the family's going to need for that outing, I can assist them with that. It's an amazing feeling, knowing that someone is happy. I'll tell you an experience of a client who came in on one of the luxury cruise liners and she had hassles about getting off. They didn't want to let her disembark, but everyone else was allowed to. I contacted Cape Town Tourism, who assisted me with the person who's responsible. We got her off the ship. She so much wanted to see an African sunset. She was totally speechless. We took her all the way up to Signal Hill and I thought, is this client happy? What's wrong? She's not saying anything. She was wowed. She said she'd always read books about the African sunset and she was left speechless. And that really touches one's heart and makes you want to do it again for the next person. I think I've made an awareness in the tourism industry of the need to cater for persons in wheelchairs. But there is still a great reluctance from people to want to accept. Some of the safaris for a day visit is probably about 8,000, some of them are 20,000 a day, and yet they won't adapt a vehicle. And the adaptation is going to cost 20,000 maximum. There's some of them that have pool facilities, I've gone in to do an inspection again, and unfortunately, before lockdown to now, things have deteriorated to the extent that there's a device that you use to transfer. You can use one device, but you need 5 holes. So you put the device in and I can transfer into the swimming pool. They won't do those kind of things. So despite sometimes the lack of positive responses I get, I continue to try and I continue to push them in that direction, because I always like to say, how would you like to be treated if you were in that situation? Do unto others as you'd like done to yourself. The past few years with COVID has been very difficult, but because of the fine example that my mother set, raising 4 children on her own when my father left, it has inspired me to continue and persevere, and I do put God first in my life, and He is my inspiration and my strength. And I believe if you do things right, you will be blessed. Many people ask where you see yourself in 5 years' time. I enjoy what I do. I have contemplated expanding the business, but as some people have pointed out to me, when you expand, you're going to lose your personal touch. I love my personal touch. I'll send a client a message, so-and-so will be your driver tomorrow. Your pickup time is this. Don't forget X, Y, or Z. And those are the things that I enjoy doing. And I think when your business grows too big, you lose that. I'm very much hands-on with the clients. Currently, I have 2 drivers. The one has been with me for over 2 years and the other one over a year. They're very mature, gentlemen, and it's like driving Miss Daisy. That's what my customers feel like. They'll say, you look beautiful today, look at your nail polish is matching this, and it wows people. Customers feel comfortable because they're mature, they're sensible, they know how to drive, and it gives them the feeling of, I'm going to be cared for. And they do love that. One lady would say, if I'm not having Marlo today, then I don't want to travel. I said, but meet Peter, give him a chance. And she loves both of them, and that's very important. They treat them with dignity. I've trained them myself, so they know how to treat people with dignity and respect. They speak when spoken to. They also will not just pry into your business or anything like that. Great guys.
Indien ek enigiets kan aanvra, sal dit wees dat lughawens meer moeite doen. Laat ons eers afklim en ons dinge in orde kry. Na die advertensie ontmoet ons vir Jerry Magagula oor die gebruik van openbare vervoer en die ontwikkelings wat gemaak word om openbare vervoer meer toeganklik te maak vir persone met gestremthede. Dit is 'n geleentheid om te hoor watter opsies die publiek het vir reis wat dalk nie bekend is nie. Ons is nou weer terug. Welcome back. TUGSA advocates for the provision of accessible and reliable public transport for people with disabilities by lobbying and monitoring provincial and local government transport department and service providers. They source transportation solutions for people with disabilities from relevant service providers, ensuring that all the necessary facilities are made available for ease of commuting for all. Jerry has been pivotal in the design and construction of the Gautrain and plays an active role in improving accessibility in the transport value chain within the city of Johannesburg. Welcome, Jerry. It's such a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Jerry, you're a veteran of the disability rights movement. What change have you seen over the past 30 years with regards to mobility and travel?
Actually, very little. All what I can say is that we've got accessible public transport on papers, not in reality. In 1997, South Africa had a document called INDS, whereby the former President Thabo Mbeki was saying to all departments and service providers, they need to make sure that they include disabilities into all their programs and projects. I can tell you that out of that document, very little has happened, especially when it comes to accessible public transport.
If I had to look at the traveling experience, right? I get on a bus, I take a taxi, I go to the airport, I have to get on a plane. All of it is connected. It's all part of the value chain. How would you say can we make it more disability friendly, more than what it currently is? And how do we improve on people's perceptions when they put that value chain together?
You see, one thing we need to accept is that for each and every program or project to be successful, you need to have people who understand the concept behind it. I've spoken about the UA, which is a universal access concept. Until such time that society understands that concept, it's going to be difficult for transport service providers themselves to implement that concept. Because what we are actually looking at in the implementation of that concept, one, you need the drivers who understand all types of disabilities.
Yes.
You need you need the vehicle designers who understand the concept of universal access. You need the infrastructure which speaks to different disabilities. So all in all, we are saying from the infrastructure, vehicle design, communication, you need to have, like you're putting, the value chain. But that signage needs to be controlled by persons with disability themselves, by persons with disabilities who understand the concept itself. I'm always opposed to departments which are run by so-called able-bodied people by reading about disability. I'm saying, me, from the bed, I'm always on a wheelchair. You can't tell me that if you read about disability, you understand disability. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You are an academic disability. You are not a person with disability. So there is this scenario which has been created by society to say, I'm going to read about disability, then I can run a project or programs or strategies for persons with disability. It doesn't work that way.
It's not the same.
Yeah. And having said that, the universal access actually speaks to society as a whole. To say, as society, we are divided by different sectors. You've got learners with disability, you've got old age people, you've got middle-aged people with disabilities. We all belong into different sectors of society. So for us to understand transportation chain is for us to recognize that the obligation of transportation stays squarely on the National Departments of Transport and all transport service providers in all modes of transport.
So it's a holistic approach.
It's a wholesome approach.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say that my national chairperson actually works for the air aviation. That's why if you go to the airport, you'll see that the specific place which caters for wheelchairs, because she has made sure that...
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm actually surrounded by men and women who actually bought into this idea and the vision and the mission of the organization to say, as much as we don't have funding, but we need to make transportation a better place for all
everyone.
persons with disabilities. Like I've said, you cannot claim to have an inclusive education system if you can't take those learners. Hence, we are saying now, the scholar transport policy of the country needs to begin to speak to the transportation of those learners from primary up to the higher education training the department.
So I'm a person with a disability and I'm having trouble moving about in the city. I want to complain about it. Where do I go? How do I get hold of someone to say, please, can we change this because I'm having trouble with it?
As TUGSA, we have created a questionnaire for all the provinces and all the municipalities to respond to those. So that happened last year on the 22nd of October. It was the Transport Month. The same questionnaire has never come back. Like I've said, I operate nationally, provincially, and regionally through the National Department unit, which I spoke to you about. Those questions, they are very much clear. I need to know if the province does have a dedicated disability desk to look after all the complaints and the challenges which are met by persons with disabilities in that province. Then it cascades down to regions.
Sure.
That information, when it's collated, it needs to go to the NDOT, to that unit I spoke to you about. Then that unit is the one responsible to put together a proper complaints documents so that they can be presented into the committee which specifically looks to universal access concept.
And would a report like that be public access so that other people who haven't filled in a questionnaire, they can see that people are reporting it and that they might possibly add to it still?
Yes, they can. Amanda Gibbet, she's a very accessible director. She receives all the complaints, but through the organization, of course. And then what she does, she put it together. She deals directly with the MEC or the MMC of that province in order to address these challenges.
Okay. Jerry, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You're welcome.
After the break, we meet Jeremy Opperman. His special brand of tackling a disabling world with a combination of humor, activism, and irony has gifted him quite the following. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Jeremy was born with retinitis pigmentosa, a deteriorating eye condition which results in total blindness. After graduating from the University of Cape Town in 1987, Jeremy worked as a marketer of cutting-edge professional development products and training services. Let's meet him. Since starting his own HR marketing consultancy in 1999, Jeremy has increasingly focused on disability issues and is particularly passionate about the unhesitant and natural integration of people with disabilities into mainstream society. He is a committed advocate of centralized disability service facilities within organizations. He believes in promoting a strong culture of disability confidence in all operational functions of a business, including corporate social investment, customer service, sales, marketing, and physical and digital infrastructure.
It's important that we focus on disability integration or inclusion into society, because historically we've been excluded. And it's a long story of why there is such systemic exclusion. But it's time that we focused on it and ensured that we take into account people with disabilities in society more. My first dog was called Barkley. Everyone's first dog is always the best dog, they think. And my dog honestly was an extraordinary dog. It coincided with me being very busy at work in my consultancy. And I'd been growing more and more uncomfortable with traveling using a cane. And then when I finally got the guide dog, it completely changed my life and it changed my business. And I was so much more confident to be able to get to my clients more or less independently. I was literally 48 years old when I did my first door-to-door, completely independently, and it's quite an interesting travel chain. So I started in this very road up to the closest station, which is Harfield Station, jumping on a train, catching a train to town, walking over to My City bus, catching the My City to the airport. Admittedly, I had to have help to find the airline counter, the dog, being a dog and can't read, so had to find someone to take me to the actual counter. Got my boarding pass, went through security. By that time I knew the airport really well anyway, so it wasn't difficult. Caught the plane to Joburg. By then we already knew the route to Gautrain. This is now just after Gautrain had been launched. Walked to Gautrain, caught the Gautrain to Centurion Station, stepped off there, and my client, a large company, well-known company, was right there at the station. And so that was my first experience of door-to-door, and I was actually thinking about it now, I was about 51, not 48, because it included Gautrain. I have, I've just sadly lost my third guide dog, Ronnie. He died tragically on the 3rd of October, 2022. And so I unfortunately have had to go back to use a cane because it takes some time for guide dogs to find a replacement dog for me. And I might have to wait as long as a year, I suspect. I might get lucky and might get one before. But I'm in that unenviable position of having to retrain myself to be proficient with a cane. And I'm sure there are some cane users out there that would disagree with me, but having used guide dogs for 15 years, I can honestly tell you from my point of view that a guide dog is a lot more effective as a mobility tool than a cane. My main modes of transport are as follows. I use my feet. That's called non-motorized transport. That's where you actually get from A to B without using a formal mode of transport, but you still need to get there. So being a pedestrian is how one does that. Then there is the train. I've been using a train in this town for 50 years. I started catching a train when I was a young boy. So I'm very familiar with the train and the network and the carriages and there's nothing about the metro rail service that I'm not familiar with. And then there's my city buses, which have been very useful as well, although their destination points are quite limited. And then Uber has been incredibly useful for us as well, or me particularly. So I don't do that long travel chain that I spoke about very often because it relies too much on uncertain transport means. You can't these days, sadly, rely on the trains being on time. You can't rely on the My City being on time. Just about the only thing you can rely on is the airplane, and even then you can't rely on that.
I'd like to end our show today with a quote from Still Me by Christopher Reeve. The vast majority of people live within a comfort zone that is relatively small. The comfort zone is defined by fear and our perception of our limitations. We are occasionally willing to take small steps outside it, but few of us dare to expand it. Those who dare sometimes fail and retreat, but many experience the satisfaction of moving into a larger comfort zone and the joyful anticipation of more success. Bly veilig, tot volgende week, selfde plek, selfde tyd. Only on SABC2, you belong. Join, like and share Activated on Facebook.